Thank you, Dr. Ihab, for the opening remark. And now, please welcome with me Dr. Yasmine Fouad, the His Excellency Minister of Environment. Dr. Yasmine.
Good afternoon. سعيدة ان انا اكون معاكم النهارده. انا هقلب انجليزي بس في الاول خلوني اقول ان انا سعيدة ان انا اكون معاكم النهارده انا وزميلي معالي وزير الموارد المائية والري دكتور هاني. ويمكن مش اول مرة ابقى موجودة في الجامعة واشارك في الانشطة الجميلة اللي الجامعة بتقوم بيها، سواء على مستوى الجزء البحثي أو الجزء اللي خاص بالطلبة، الأنشطة بتاعتهم أو المبادرات أو المسابقات. My fellow colleague Dr. Hani Suela, Minister of Water Resources and Irrigation, Professor Dr. Ihab Abdurrahman, Provost of the AUC, Professor Dr. Salah Al-Haggar, Professor of Energy and Sustainable Development at the AUC and President of Egypt Green Building Council. Distinguished guests, participants, speakers, panelists, and dearest students. Allow me first to express my thanks and appreciation for the kind invitation to be among you today in discussing a very vital and important topic, the climate change and net zero international conference, Act to Zero, under the auspices of His Excellency Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli. I would like really to speak on 3 points to touch bases on them, derived from what Dr. Salah Al-Haggar and Dr. Ihab have indicated. First of all, I will not definitely, in the middle of the AUC, dig into figures and put percentage, because I'll not put myself into that situation. So let me speak strategically on, do we need a net zero? Yes, we need a net zero. How would we need a net zero, and what did Egypt do at the strategic level? With some insights on the different sessions that you will be having for the next 2 days, if Dr. Salah Al-Haggar would allow me to do so. First, that the latest IPCC AR6 report has explicitly indicated early this year that even under the scenario of the 1.5 degrees, still the world will increase its temperature. We will still suffer long heat waves with longer duration, and more drought would come to the earth. And with this higher temperature, not only our food, water, shelter that would be affected as climate affects all paths of development, but simply also our marine and coastal ecosystem is losing a lot. Over the last 150 years, a very small example of that is that we lost half of the coral reefs that is a home to many of the habitat that is living in the marine. COP27, I'd like to give some insights, because that is where we have been collaborating with the American University in Cairo. We came prior to COP27, we came with the Professor Ihab, the Provost, with President Dalal, also to see what has happened after COP27. There were 4 important takes away from COP27 that goes beyond the regular part of the world. The one important thing is the creation of the very long-awaited for the loss and damage fund, keeping the momentum for the 1.5 alive, and how can we achieve that? Holding business and institution accountable. And here I would like to emphasize the need to change how the multilateral development banks provide the support to different countries in that part, and provide the financial support to different countries. This was not enough, actually, when we're talking about a COP27 and its success. And when we're talking about net zero strategically and at the global level, one important thing that I would like you all to take away on the road to COP28, which is It's not either or. It's not mitigation or achieving the 1.5 alive or going towards a net zero or adaptation, because that is the conflict that's happening right now. It's both of them. If we would like to really fight climate change, we need to look thoroughly into what are the measures and the quick wins and the fast track that will help us all reduce the greenhouse gases. And I like very much that Dr. Salah has mentioned the construction building and how the buildings are a large emitter into that. So these would need different scenarios. But we need also to quickly adapt to the impact of climate change and how best to reduce the risk and the disaster that we know is happening day after one another. And we have a unique opportunity in COP28. We didn't have in COP27. In COP27, we didn't have the nitty-gritty of having a target or a goal. We all came in COP26, COP27, and we knew that the figure of the 1.5 degree is the something that we would like to reach. So there was a figure. Although the 2015 Paris Agreement did not mention the 1.5, it did mention the 2 degrees. In COP26 and COP27, we did not have a target for adaptation. And that is the reason why developing countries called for what is called global goal on adaptation. So what I would like to give as an insight and an advice to this kind of conference is to look beyond the net zero and how can we go COP28, bringing that balance between these are the things that we would like to do, and this is how best to reduce that. This is the fast track, and this is how can we achieve a net zero. But this is also how can we do that balance and do that kind of adaptation. Second message. Egypt has went through a very lengthy process in the climate change, and you don't ever think that that was an easy task for the government to take over. A government that we have issues related to development, to poverty, to increasing the population rate, to issues related to how can we ensure food security. And my fellow colleague, I'm sure Dr. Hani will be speaking a lot about water security and how are we assuring that. It was not easy to embed that discussion in the middle of the decision-making and the policy-making process. But we were able to understand that climate change is indeed the most global challenge that would hit hard all development process at the national level. And for that reason, we uplifted the council, our council, to be at the highest level of the prime minister, with ministers sitting around the table. We started to learn by doing, and we started having our strategy of 2050, although that is not a commitment inside the Paris Agreement, because the commitment is a national determined contribution and not a strategy, followed by an updated NDC that we've done for 2030 with the specific figures in the most emitting sectors that would be electricity, transport, oil and gas. And this is very important because once we've done that, we will need to report on that, and we will need to act fastly and quickly and promptly and collect data. All this was steps that we tried to take, but without the private sector, without the research and the technology and the knowledge, we will not be able to achieve that. So for the private sector, what we've been doing is that we had announced our first set of incentives, green incentive within the investment law for 4 important sectors that we thought are the things that will help us achieve our target: the renewable energy, the green hydrogen, all waste streams, and the single use to the plastic bags. All this was steps that we called, from our own perspective, creating the national enabling environment for stakeholders to play a vital, important, effective, and efficient role in the fight against climate change. My last message here is to the sectors that you are going to discuss throughout the next 2 days: the waste, the decarbonization, the wastewater, and the sustainable communities. The first one on the waste, I'd like you to have a deep dive on where we stand right now, because 4 years ago, this country was full of garbage everywhere. And it was not only the garbage of the municipal waste, it was the agricultural waste, it was the industrial, it was the electronic waste. Having a new law for the waste management in Egypt, allowing for circular economy, allowing the private sector, we did not say we've done it all, but at least the figure shows that the collection of the waste has increased from 20 to 55% in 3 years. The recycling has moved from 20 to 45%. We will not reach 80 or 100 except after 10 to 15 years, because the waste management is a process, it's learning by doing, and it's not a copy and paste. But that is something that we would like you to look into that. Secondly, on the decarbonization, exactly like Dr. El-Haggar has mentioned, the industry is not the highest emitter. However, how can we include more industries for a net zero? And that could be done because right now the operation cost for any factory that are overusing energy, that are overusing water, they're not getting the profit. Again, one important factor, the CBAM, the last Green Deal agreement, says that by 2025, the life cycle chains of different products of industry will not be allowed to the EU. So the thing that we would like to do is a lending hand, a helping hand to the industries. We've done our part through preparing a green finance for the industries, energy efficiency, renewable energy, zero liquid discharge, and we have paved the road for 130 different industries in Egypt that were able to adopt the circular economy and implement that in their operations. Last but not least, because the wastewater, I will not discuss that. Dr. Swalem will be discussing that because I'm not shooting myself in my own feet to discuss wastewater while Dr. Swalem is here. The last thing is the sustainable communities. We're still lacking behind on that, I have to admit. We have examples. I'm sure Dr. Sara Al-Battuti, as well as Ambassador Hisham Badr, will be discussing on Hayat Karima, will be discussing on the kind of green villages that we're doing. Hayat Karima has different aspects on mitigation and adaptation that could be related into that. But how can we encourage more sustainable communities? How can they provide their own food? We've done bits and pieces. We've done how can we use the agricultural waste and the animal waste for providing energy and organic fertilizers to the farmers. We've discussed different issues of energy efficiency. How can they use more efficient use of water? But as a concept, I think we need to have more applicable models, or if the models are there, please show them to us as a government, because we will be able to replicate and upscale and do that kind of fast tracking. Last thing, that would be very useful because Egypt in 2024 is hosting the global conference for the cities. According to, with the cooperation with the UN Habitat. And that is a very good opportunity. If we were able to have those success stories that could be replicated and upscale, we do that kind of different research within yourselves, I think that would be extremely useful. Last but not least, a true believer that together all of us can beat climate change. Only if we believe in knowledge, science, ability, as well as the need and the aspiration for our future generations. Because simply, we have no option and we don't have a planet B. It's only the one and only Earth. Thank you.